Welcome to OpenExO live on a Tuesday. This is the Tuesday edition. My name is Lance Pepler, and this is not to replace the OpenExO with Kevin Allen that happens on a Thursday. So stay tuned in 2 days' time when Kevin Allen will be doing OpenExO live. But today it's OpenExO live now on a Tuesday. So OpenExO's purpose is to transform the world for a better future. And part of this purpose is to assist organizations of all sizes, private and public sector, to transform and thrive in the new economy. So for this Tuesday edition of OpenExO Live, we will focus on OpenExO partners that have gone through the OpenExO certification process and are actively assisting organizations to transform. We still have, like I said, OpenExO on a Thursday with Kevin Allen, so stay tuned for that. Just to let you know that if you'd like to ask any questions, then please go ahead and do it. The harder the better, just put them in the chat. So who do we have on the show tonight? Well, we feature Canada today, and we feature Ken Merkel from a partner called OpenExO Execute. And if you go to their website, which I'll give you the address soon, you'll see that their slogan is imagining and realizing futures together. So I'm going to bring Ken onto the screen and we can have a chat. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Good. How are you, Lance?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Ken, where am I speaking to you from today?
So I'm just in a little city south of Edmonton called Beaumont in Alberta, Canada.
And you were saying that winter or autumn is approaching, things are getting colder there now again.
Yeah, we have to actually cover up our vegetables so they don't freeze. And hopefully still have some of them survive before they're fully grown.
Absolutely. So Ken, can you give an overview of your career and tell us a little bit about Execute, how it started, how it formed, your partners, that sort of thing?
Sure. So I actually kind of got into business really young. When I was in my teens, I started a roofing business and then a pizza company for festivals and a few other festival things that I was doing. And then as I got into my career, I moved around from a few large corporations into startups and even into government in the last few years. And I've always kind of been in lean startup product development before lean startup was even a thing, and creating new and innovative products and across a ton of industries, telcos, and market research, human resources, education, so kind of all over the place. And in my last role in the government, I had the opportunity to develop and launch an innovative program, and it was really truly transforming the way IT projects were done. And I happened to come across OpenExO at the time. This is a couple of years ago. And we quickly realized that what we were building inside the government was very similar to the EXO methodology. And so we wanted to bring truly transformational methodologies to other organizations. So me and a couple of other guys, we started up EXO Execute. And we started doing OpenExO meetups and really pushing that methodology. And, we're looking for methodologies to understand that what's holding organizations back is that corporate immune system. And in order to deal with that, you need to look at people, process, and technology in that order of importance. So that's really what we've been doing, and really pushing that for the last couple of years with any organizations. And now we're starting to look at industry-wide groupings and looking at whole industries here in Canada, and how can we help them shift with the disruption that's coming and being exacerbated by COVID-19.
And so I'm just interested, where did you meet your partners? Were they friends before, or how did you get to know them?
Yeah, we were actually working together on the program we developed for the government of Alberta.
Okay.
And so we've known each other for quite a few years. We worked together for quite a few years, and we started then to leave the government organization and start to build EXO Execute, because we just realized we could do more from outside the government than we thought we could have impact inside the government, but that is very difficult to do. That it's much easier to have impact from outside of a government organization.
And I've actually watched one of your meetups. I found it on YouTube and I watched one of them. Is it still available? I think that was before lockdown and the coronavirus that you had your meetups, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we did the last one maybe a week before everything got locked down. And now we're doing them kind of on a different scale. We're doing them online still, but we're doing them really on an industry by industry basis, working with
Mm,
industries. And we're also incorporating some of the other stuff that we do, like sci-fi hives, into industry and association meetings right now.
Well, I want to talk to you more about that. Um,
Ooh.
the, the first thing I want to ask you, because and maybe you can share your website with us, because I went to your website obviously, and it says something about 10x transformational learning workshops. Can you tell us about what they are, and what the purpose of them, and what you want to accomplish from those workshops?
Yeah, so I mean the biggest thing is to shift the leaders' mindsets. And so we created a workshop. It's meant for leaders, provide them with an introduction into disruptive trends and the exponential model. So it lets
Mm,
them practice, through a case study, exploring some of the risks and opportunities that disruption can create within their industry. And it gives them some tools for embarking on a cultural transformation journey for their whole organization. So again, like we talked earlier, it's encompassing all of the elements of people, process, and technology needed to create and manage a transformational culture. So we look not just at the EXO methodology, we also look at opportunities to shift their organization, even the structure of their organization, and how to create a transformational culture within their company.
mm, yeah. And so, what are some of the things that you go through with the workshop in order to accommodate that or achieve that?
So we look at some different organizational models, like if you're familiar with Spotify and their product model.
Okay.
So we look at different organizational models.
Mm,
We look at some of their processes and how to run, you know, uh,
mm,
transformational projects, which is very different than the old waterfall methodology, right?
okay.
So we have kind of this 10x delivery process that's looks at different ways of doing projects that are far more transformational and include the business areas and include the clients in the process.
Mm,
And then we look at the EXO methodology and how do they apply the attributes and looking at a case study company and really trying to help them see how they could incorporate those attributes in their organization.
great. So let's move on to something quite exciting, which is Sci-Fi Hive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fantastic. I I interviewed. So I've got a podcast, Exponential Organizations, of which you featured on it. So thank you for that in the past. And I interviewed a company called InnoSight, and they believe in looking at the future, trying to map out the future, and then working back from the future to present and trying, come up with solutions. Is that so? Can you take us through what Sci-Fi Hive is and how you do that, which I think is a fantastic tool to have.
Yeah, and I mean it's similar to that, but we take that hive mentality, and that's the important part. Like, so when I mentioned earlier, for an
Mm,
organization to truly transform, it has to embrace change, and that again starts with people. So,
mm,
in the OpenExO community, we're well aware of disruption and exponential technologies. That's not true of most organizations. So, one of the things we notice is that many organizations just don't know where to start when it comes to shifting to a transformation culture. And so
mm,
most organizations have been built for operational excellence and they have great operational leaders. But to shift their thinking to strategic thinking, it needs new and unique tools. And that's really what Sci-Fi Hive is. So over the last couple of years, we've actually been developing and testing the Sci-Fi Hive program. And it's to help those organizations overcome those daily operational biases and the corporate immune system. And it's really having them create a vision together. So collaborating on that vision together. So we do some exploration at the beginning of that. And then there's a futurescaping exercise where they look way out. And then we use science fiction and comics and backcast to today. And so through that backcasting, they can find out what are the barriers and hurdles and the opportunities to get to that 20 plus year vision. And
mm.
so what we really do, though, is create a play space for people to leave their biases behind and engage the kid in everyone. And think about when you read a comic as a kid, and it's very believable, the stories that you read as a kid, and allow them to truly imagine new futures. And then we coach them on how to realize those futures. It, it, it engages in a different way. It engages leaders and team members like no other tool that we've ever seen. And the result is a compelling future vision for the organization and a plan for realizing that vision. And the great thing is the organization is instantly on board with that vision because it's their vision. It's not what you get from a lot of the big consulting organizations. It's not a vision that's forced upon them. It's a vision that they built themselves. And that's really where the power comes in them building their own vision and then realizing that vision.
Yeah. Can you take us through the process and how that's done? Because it sounds quite difficult to do, how you get people to come out of their way of thinking, to look at different alternatives. How do you break the ice? How do you get people to work in a team? What's the process that you go through, at the beginning stages and then through the process?
So there's a few parts similar to EXO. There's kind of an awakening where we introduce them to many different technologies, different business models, and then contextual changes within their industry. And then we have them do their own exploring in those same tracks. And so they spend some time exploring, and while they're doing that, we can actually see them work, and we work with them while they work and make sure we're expanding their thinking. We keep expanding their thinking, have them overcome, the biases that they do, and we try to connect them together and connect some of their ideas together. Because as we know from in disruptive technology, it's not necessarily about one technology that's creating such a disruption. It's when they start combining. And so we help them to start combining their ideas into bigger ideas and help them to overcome, the fact that you're looking 20 plus years out. Like, don't worry if you think it's impossible, just get the ideas out there. And so we do brainstorming techniques and voting techniques to get them to boil those down to a vision of the future. And then we have them backcast from there and backcast through the hurdles that they might run into. And this is where we start overcoming their biases, because all that backcasting is where their biases, where they see hurdles are. And those are all things in a lot of cases that can be overcome very easily because it's a bias and it's not actually even real. And so, and then we also look for the opportunities. And so the other part of it is, so what's one step you can take tomorrow to get you closer to that 20-year vision, and an iterative process to get them to their 20-year vision in 5 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm speaking to Ken Merkel from a partner called Execute. I've seen people coming and going onto the live feed here. So if you have any questions for Ken, we don't have numbers on LinkedIn people, so I assume people are watching on LinkedIn, Ken. If anyone's got a question, please feel free to put it in the chat and we can ask Ken those questions. I'm speaking to him about, I've started speaking about the 10X Transformation Learning Workshop, and now we're speaking about Sci-Fi Hive. So if you have any questions about either of those two, I want to ask you about the searching. So that's one of the first things you do, is get people to search. Once you've done an awake session with exponential technology, is that going onto Google and doing searches on there? And do they do it individually or as a team? How does that searching work?
So they do it individually, and we actually seed it quite a bit. So while they're going through this process, there's kind of a 2-week lead up. And we do emails go to them every day with different components of the process. So they're learning the process as we go. And as well, we feed them with videos and technology related to their industry, as well as adjacent industries and kind of all over the place. We really want them to go as deep as they can into any technology. So it doesn't have to be specific to their industry. And then as well, we also bring in people from the community. We actually have Dr. Michael Freebs joining us on, which I know he's a prominent member of the community. He's going to be joining us in one of our Sci-Fi Hives with a corporation we're working with in the United States here next week. And so we
Wow.
use members of the community that have broad technology backgrounds to come in and help expand thinking as well.
So this is not a once-off event. This is a whole group of sequence of events that you have with the customer. Is that right? And how long does it last? Is it over a month, or what's the duration of
Yeah,
the
I think
process?
the total of the event, and generally it's very customized to every
Mm,
customer. But the research week, there's a bunch of lead up that we do to prepare for it. And then there's a research week that the customer is involved in. And then
okay.
the week after that, we do our first collaborative session, and we bring them all together in a Zoom room, and we
Hmm.
start working on the science fiction comic. So one of the deliverables is a science fiction comic. And that's about 4 hours. We can't do much more than 4 hours because I'm telling you, people's brains are mush after 4 hours of thinking 20 years in the future. And
Yeah.
then we'll come back a week or two later and start developing the digital comic. So by the end of the first one, though, they've got the future story, the vision, and
Mm,
they overlay a hero's journey or a
mm,
collaborative journey onto that vision so that they're developing a really compelling story. Humans love stories, and that's why
mm,
this
mm.
works. And then once the sessions are done and they have a digital comic, what we do is we take that then to professional comic writers, and we get a professional comic book created. And then that comic book is used as marketing within the organization or even to their customers and the future of their organization. That really
Mm,
helps get people on board as well. So not just making the comic, but
mm,
reading a comic suspends disbelief for the reader,
mm.
and it
Wow.
allows them to buy into a vision that's outside of their daily operational biases.
Mm, mm. No. And
Yeah.
okay, so they're doing their research and then they come to the event, which is 4 hours long, and you
Mhm.
give them material for the comic. And you say that's in Zoom. Is that like images, or how do they start working on their comic? I suppose in Zoom you've got that draw feature that you can then start drawing within the Zoom
So it's not
features.
inside it. So we use Google quite a bit, different components of Google.
Oh, does someone
Because
share their screen then?
they don't have to actually. They can within there share the screen, but they can all work independently and together as long as they can talk to each other. Because one of the things
Ah,
we've found, so we've tested with over 1,000 participants now. One of the things, sometimes there's people that are not as extroverted, and generally, there's a couple of people that are extroverted, and they start kind of going, and they're just going like crazy. But the process we have allows people that aren't very extroverted or that don't necessarily want to speak up to put their ideas on the page as well, so everybody can see the page and everybody can work on the page at the same time.
mm, mm,
So they all work together whether or not they're talking. And so we've done some global sci-fi highs, for instance, where there's been people who were only able to dial in because they didn't have
mm.
very good internet connection, but they're able to talk and hear and work on the document because they can do
Ah,
that separate. So it's really built to allow everybody to participate in the collaboration, even if they don't
mm,
want to
mm,
actually speak up, and to build on each other's ideas.
mm.
And so we've developed some templates for running people through the process.
Hmm. And so Zoom is the audio environment, and then Google is the interactive play environment where you do your actual development.
That's
That's
right.
great.
Yeah.
And then so at the end of the 4 hours, you hoping that people have got a rough overview of the comic and the future that they've mapped out for them. Is that kind of the
That's
end goal after the 4 hours?
that's
And
correct. And
and
then
then
we
you
come
go and do
back
the
for the fun part, right? The building the digital comic book. Well, it's not. I guess it's not fun for everybody, but most people kind of really get into it and they have a lot of fun doing it.
Is that a
And it doesn't
second session?
it's a second session, yeah, and
Ah, okay.
it doesn't actually require any artistic skills. So we've
Mm,
developed some processes that allows anybody to participate in building the comic book. Because the intent for that is to be able to provide the professional artist a really good vision of what you're going for. So it doesn't
mm,
have to be
mm,
perfect, but it
Yeah.
has to get, you have to get the feeling in it that you were going for.
Mm.
And that really helps then the professional artist to be able to create that final science fiction comic book for you.
Mm. And then you hope to take that end result and then help them accelerate their development towards that particular objective that they've reached. So they've said they want to get to a particular point, and then you say maybe we can get there faster. Is it
Right.
right?
That's right. And you know, and it's a phased approach, right? It's we kind of have, really what we have is the EXO sprint, but in smaller pieces. So if you may not have
Mm.
noticed, Sci-Fi Hive actually overlays week 1 and a
Okay.
little bit of week 2, right? And so it's a
Yeah.
very affordable method for organizations to start thinking differently. And then if they want to go on to the next phase, then we can help them get through the next part of getting towards that ideation and developing of initiatives.
Mm. Mm.
And then if they want to take it further, then they can get into the lean startup approach and what's shown in really week 6 to 10, and building a minimum viable product and getting a
Mm.
product out quickly. So it's all actually built to overlay the OpenExO model, but do it in a little different way, in a more consumable approach, let's say, because we find when we were going into organizations and talking about exponentials, they maybe weren't
Mm.
getting it, right? And so
Okay.
this is it's a far more consumable approach for organizations to be able to bring in EXO in bite-sized chunks,
Mm.
and
Mm. Mm.
and something that all of their people can consume very easily. Everybody's read a comic book; they kind of get
Yeah.
that, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, some of the question we get asked quite often is, what else could we use it for? And you know, we've used it for team building events. We've used it for developing MTPs, which are massive transformative purposes.
Mm.
And we use it really to try and shift mindsets within an organization. And even when we've done team building events, they get way more than team building it out of it, right? They end
Mm.
up actually transforming their thinking through a team building event, and find that like they get way more than just a team building event out of it. And even though that's how it starts, it can be
Mm.
consumed into an organization in very different ways than
Yeah.
walking in cold with exponential disruption.
Mm. No, that's so. Just to the people that have joined and people are coming and going, I'm speaking to Ken Merkel as it's on the screen, and he's from a partner called EXO Execute, or a company in Canada called EXO Execute. And we've been speaking about Sci-Fi Hive and also about 10x transformation and exponential organizations and exponential change and exponential technology and all sorts of things. So, Ken, what are the plans for EXO Execute for the next few months?
Well, we got a lot going on. So we have a few Sci-Fi Hives on the go around the globe.
Brilliant.
And we're offering right now a teaser event. We're calling it. It's called the Sci-Fi Hive Swarm, and it's a quick 90-minute where we're offering it to associations, and we're offering it free of charge to you know, the first few organizations, to allow them. And we're looking at associations that have lots of members with them and trying to look across a whole industry at a time to kind of help
Mm.
them see that there are new tools, and there's tools available to them to help them shift their thinking. So we're quite busy on those. In October, we're starting an innovation masterclass program. And so it's very different because what we're doing is partnering with young adults and with local businesses in rural communities and helping them to learn and apply our innovative tool set within their community. So participants are getting massive amounts of value and real hands-on experience working with business. And the communities we're running the program in are gaining betterment of their existing businesses and creation of new businesses within their community with some of their youth and their young adults.
Mm.
So that's, you know, really exciting. We're excited to get that going. It's a really unique approach to having the students work with businesses within a rural local community and try to drive some of that forward. And some of it's even in family businesses and trying to help this. You know, we have a lot of businesses that are now transitioning from their kids to from their parents to their kids, and the
Yeah.
kids maybe aren't that interested in being involved in the business because it's a bit outdated. And so this program, we're hoping to get the kids involved in modernizing their parents' business into something they want to stay in that rural community and run. So that's one of the things. I'm sure you heard that we decided to postpone EXO World Canada, just the event, and merge instead with the EXO World Global event. Many reasons for that. Mostly, it allows us to spend more of our time driving action along with a cross-Canada team that was built for EXO World Canada. Because what we're hearing from industries is that they were really not that interested in an event, but they really loved the action part of the event that we were doing. And so we're going to, instead of doing the event, we're going to continue to drive action in Canada and bringing together industries that are facing disruption and creating new future visions. And then working with those industries, just like we talked about with Sci-Fi Hive, to either connect to existing initiatives or create new initiatives to move those industries forward 20 years in the next 5 years. And so that's really taking most of our time in the next few months.
No, you're very busy.
Yeah, keeping us busy as well as dealing with what's happening around the world with COVID and family things and all of that I'm sure everybody has to deal with right now.
Absolutely. Ken, can you give us your contact details, your website? What is your website detail?
Yeah, so exoexecute.com. I'm not sure if I can put it in the chat.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I'm not sure it's going to let me comment here.
But I can put it in the chat if
not.
So it's exoexecute.com.
That's one, and then we also have scifihive.com, SCIFIHIVE.com. So that's specific to Sci-Fi Hive. And of course, you can connect with me directly for email. I'm going to throw that up on my screen. So ken.merkel@exoexecute.com.
We can both comment on things.
Yeah. So that's, contact me directly through email is the easiest way to reach us. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those other things. So millions of ways to connect to me.
Great. Ken, there hasn't been any questions today, which
no questions.
Maybe we've been very clear in our chatting, and people haven't had the need to ask questions. Well, let's just say it was that.
Yeah, and they can always we'll stick with that. They can always connect with me offline, and if they have any questions. But we're also open to any ideas about how we can use Sci-Fi Hive within your organization. Like I said, we're very collaborative in how we put together the Sci-Fi Hives. For instance, we have one coming up with a municipality that's going to look at the future of working together. So we co-develop the process with the organization and co-develop the topic. Make sure that we're building a session that's going to work for everybody when we do that. We've got some other really interesting things happening with Sci-Fi Hive that I can't say too much about yet, but let's say it involves a possible museum exhibit around Sci-Fi Hive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good. So thank you, Ken, for joining. And thank you for Planet and Marsha and Linda and Mike and David, who all liked what we were doing. Thank you for the people that joined on Facebook that I can see, and then I think on LinkedIn as well. So thank you very much for joining, all those people that did. And thank you very, very much, Ken, for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Lance, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. So let's remind you that Kevin Allen is on LinkedIn on Thursday. So this same time, if you join on OpenExO Live, it's not LinkedIn, it's Facebook and YouTube as well. And so please join then. And I'm going to play out with a video. And until next Tuesday, when I join you again with another partner, have a fantastic week. Bye-bye.